Mercy Me is coming to Pittsburgh. The Together Again tour with Mercy Me, Crowder, and special guest Andrew Ripp. Thursday, October 5th. Bring your family and friends to the PPG Paints Arena in Pittsburgh for Mercy Me, Crowder, and Andrew Ripp live in concert. 3 multiple award-winning artists on one stage for one night. Let your spirit soar, your heart sing, and your faith ignite. Mark your calendars for Thursday, October 5th. Get your tickets now at mercyme.org.
It's exciting that the business boutique was made for you.
I know that I can make a difference in people's lives, and I want to do that.
Hearing a lot of what other people are going through is really healing in a sense and motivating as well.
I have the world in my hand, and I can do whatever I want.
Learning from some of the top leaders who can make these dreams a reality is just so exciting.
It ignited a passion in me to know she can do that, we can do that too.
I'm so blessed to have heard the podcast that led me to this moment.
Hey, welcome to the Business Boutique Podcast. I'm Christy Wright, and today we are talking about having a plan. Now, I know this seems pretty basic, but it is amazing how many people I work with in business that don't have a basic business plan. So we're going to unpack that today. Later on in the show, I'll be interviewing author and speaker Caine about how she has taken her idea and passion and turned it into the A21 campaign. The A21 campaign is one of the largest nonprofit organizations in the world dedicated to rescuing victims of human trafficking in 12 different countries. You'll also hear from Amber Jones, who is a woman just like you. She's implemented the steps we're going to talk about, and she has experienced unbelievable growth in her business. But first, we're going to talk about the plan. I want to tell you guys where I really saw the need for this start. Several years ago, I decided to kind of dive into research, and I wanted to understand what unique challenges women face when they're starting businesses, specifically side businesses, because many of the women that I was working with kind of accidentally slid into business. They didn't start out with this big dream and a big goal to run a big business with team members. They just had a fun little hobby, and it kind of turned into something more. And so I wanted to understand exactly how that happened, what their goals were, and what problems they needed help with, because I knew that if we could get them the help they needed, that they could really turn this into something great. They could really reach their goals and earn extra money on their own terms, which many of them wanted to do. I did a couple years of research on women with side businesses and women with small businesses, and I identified these really strong themes. It seemed like that every woman I talked to, regardless of her business, regardless of her age or what area of the country that she lived in, all went through a very similar process in how they got into business. And so I'd love to talk about that for just a second and how many people get into business kind of accidentally. And I know this isn't true for everyone, but for a lot of people, this accidental process looks the same. So here's what happens. First, let's say that you have this hobby, and maybe your hobby is making handmade dresses for little girls. And so you just do it for fun. You make them for your little girl, you make them for your family and that type of thing. But one day, you decide to make one for a friend and you post a picture of it on Facebook. So that would be the second step. You post this on social media somewhere. Well, what happens next is step number 3, and that is where people start to like and comment and share this picture, and they're thinking, hey, can you make one for me? You start to get more and more requests of, oh, that's so cute. I would love to have one for my daughter. I would love to give that to my niece, or I'm going to a baby shower coming up. I would love to bring this as a gift. Can you make one for me? As you're trying to keep up with the demand of these requests coming in through Facebook, which was for something that was just a hobby, right? You weren't taking this seriously at all. You have this aha moment, and that's step number 4. You have an aha moment where you have the thought, hey, wait a minute, I can make money doing this. And so as you have this moment where you realize this little hobby is something that actually could bring in extra money for yourself or your family, that's when the transition happens and you start to go from thinking of this as a hobby to considering the possibility that it could be a real business. It might be something you could do for fun that you love and you enjoy, but as a bonus, you could make money while you're doing it. What happens next is step number 5, and that is where you start to do the thing. You're going to put yourself out there, and I call this stage the experimenting stage because this is where most people just start throwing things against the wall to see what sticks. You set up business cards. You come up with a business name. You set up a business Facebook page. You come up with a logo. You make up some pricing. You might do a little research. You set your product line. You take some pictures and put them on Facebook as well. And so you start to take this more seriously as a business and no longer just this accidental hobby. But what I found is this quickly leads to overwhelm because many people that start businesses accidentally and they kind of slide into business immediately get overwhelmed because it seems like there's so much to do and there's no time to do it. They have 1,000 questions of what's more important and where should I spend my time and how do I make this thing a real business? And what happens is it quickly leads to burnout. And unfortunately, this is the point at which many people give up and they think, you know what? I can't do this. I'm just going to go back to having this little hobby. I'm not cut out for this. I'm not business minded. I'm not made for this. Business doesn't come naturally to me. And you know what, y'all? I'll be really honest with you. It has nothing to do with being business-minded. You being successful in what you're good at doesn't have to do with you knowing all the business terminology. It doesn't mean that you have to have a business background or degree. The truth is you need what everyone needs to be successful in business. You just need a plan. That's it. You just need a plan to get you from point A to point B. You need steps because the truth is it's not having too much to do that overwhelms you. It's not knowing what to do. Now, I don't know about you guys, but if I have a plan, whether that's a training plan to run a marathon or a step-by-step plan to redecorate something in my house, if I can see the steps, if I can read and understand what I need to do, I'm willing to do the work. And I know the same is true for you. Now, when it comes to having a business plan, you've got options. You can create your own business plan from a template that you find online. You could model it after how someone else does their business plan, or you can always use the Business Boutique business plan. As a part of this episode, you actually get a download of our Business Boutique Quick Start Guide. Now, this is not the full business plan, but this is a great starting point to get you thinking about the different things you need to work through to get your business off the ground. Now, if you've been in business for a while, I don't want you to check out here because this is for you too. It's amazing how so often we can get further down the line in business and there's a lot of bases we didn't cover. So it's still good to go back and reset and plan for some things that you might have missed early on. In this episode, we are going to talk about the first 2 tiers of your business plan. And in the next episode, we'll talk about the next 2 tiers. Your business plan, if you're going by the Business Boutique business plan, is 4 tiers, and it's built that way for a reason. Now, you guys know I was raised by an entrepreneur, and my mom had a cake shop. So my business plan that I've created for the Business Boutique, including the quick start version that you're going to receive as a download, is based around a wedding cake. Now, I know that sounds silly, but let me explain. Wedding cakes are built foundationally. If you look at any wedding cake anywhere, the bottom, the base tier, is always larger than the tiers above it. And each tier that gets higher and higher on the cake is smaller and smaller because it supports less and less. Now, your business plan is going to be like that because many people think that all elements of a business plan are created equal, but they're not. There are going to be things you need to think through in your business that are way more important than other things. I want to talk to you about what those are and why they fall in the order that they do. Elements of your business plan that come first inform all future decisions you make about your business, so we have to start at the beginning for very specific reasons. So let's talk about the 4 tiers of your Business Boutique business plan. Tier number 1 is where we build our foundation. This is the most important tier and the most important decisions you'll make about your business. But unfortunately, this is the spot that many people miss. They breeze on past it and they start setting up Facebook pages and they start putting themselves out there in marketing and they totally forget to do the groundwork, the strategy, the homework, all of the intentional decisions on the front end that will inform those future decisions and make sure they're the most effective. Your foundation is where you start to have some strategy and you work on your business, not just in it. This is where you get above the business and you start to think towards the future. You start to think about what you want this business to be. Where do you want it to go? What do you hope that it's going to do for you? The first thing I want you to think about in building your foundation for your business plan is your why. And here's what I mean by that. Why you do what you do will always affect how you do it. So that's why we want to start with your why. What's your motivator? Why do you want to do this? And why this specific business? Why does it mean so much to you? Why is it important to you? When you start to answer your why question, it's amazing how everything else starts to make more sense. Everything else starts to fall into place. So the first thing I want you to think through in building your foundation is just simply why you do it. For me, it's my mom's story. I talked about this in the last episode, how watching my mother run a business and raise a family and use her gifts and impact the community just by stepping into her God-given strengths made me the woman that I am today. And that's why I want to help equip other women to do the same. My why is my motivator. It's the whole story behind the Business Boutique. It's why I care so deeply about this mission and this message. So what's your why? Maybe it's your story. Maybe it's something that impacted you growing up. Maybe it's an experience you had that put a calling on your heart. Maybe it's just something that you're really, really good at. You're really gifted, or you have a specific skill in some area, and that's your why. You want to use it. And if you don't know what your why is, it's going to be really hard to stay the course when things get tough later on down the line, because in business, things can be really hard. Believe it or not, your why doesn't just affect your business, it affects your branding and your marketing. We're going to talk about that in later episodes, but I love the quote by Simon Sinek where he says, "People don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it." So it's really important that we know why we do it. That's why you want to start building your foundation by defining what your why is. Now, you also want to think about some other things. Think about the future, your dreams and your vision for what this business is going to be. Think about your goals. What goals do you want to set? What milestones do you want to hit in growing your business? And how do you define success? Does it look like dollars? Is it revenue or personal income? Is it people that you help or units sold? Is it hiring team members? Is it growth in retail stores? You get to define what your version of success is. It's just important that you define what your finish line is, because if you don't know what it is, you're never going to cross it. That's why the foundation is so important. It gets you thinking about the future. It gets you thinking about where you're going so that you're starting your business with the end in mind. And like I said, if you're already in business and have been running your business for a while, this is a great time to go back and reset. Maybe your goals have changed. I'll tell you, one of the things I've seen more often than not is that women I'm working with and starting their businesses and growing them, their goals change and increase as their confidence changes and increases. So maybe in the very beginning, your goals are small and your dreams are really little, and you just hope that someone would actually buy this thing. But after a couple years, once the business has proven itself, your goals get bigger. You think, what if it could be in a retail store? What if I could have multiple locations? What if I could hire team members? Your goals and dreams will grow in proportion to the confidence you have in your business. And as your business is more successful, you'll see those goals change as well. Taking time to stop and reset and think about the future is always going to be what will help you actually make that future a reality. So after you've built your foundation and you've really thought about the future and planned for your goals that you want to achieve through your business, the second tier of your business plan, or wedding cake, is going to be where you make your business yours. And going into business for yourself has incredible benefits, but by far the best one is that you get to build your business around your life versus the other way around. And this is where you can customize it to make sure that the business is meeting your goals, your needs, and really accommodating your life. So I want to go through 3 elements that you want to think through as you're making your business your own. The first thing you want to think about is, what are your strengths? You're going to be the most successful if you stay in your strengths. Now, I know when you're just getting started out, you're wearing a lot of hats and you're doing everything yourself. But the reality is the business is going to become more successful as you find help for your weaknesses and you stay in your strengths. Do more of what you're good at. Do more of what you enjoy. Do more of those things that come effortlessly to you. That way, you can spend time in your business doing more of what you love and less of what you don't. But as we know, some of those less desirable things, those things we aren't as good at, they still have to get done. So that's where you want to find some help. You might outsource those things or automate those things. You might barter for some of those things to find some help, or just ask. You'd be amazed at how many people are willing to help you if you simply ask. So building your business around your strengths, not only will you have more fun, have less stress, and enjoy your business more, but the quality of the business will be so much higher because you're staying in your strengths and you're allowing others to stay in theirs. If you're creative and you want it bad enough, you'll find a way to make it happen. It doesn't have to all fall on you. In the next episode, we'll be talking with Melissa Hennett, who's a Shark Tank success story and friend of mine. She's the owner and founder of Grace and Lace, and she actually did this. She, as she was growing her business and trying to keep up with the demand, hired people that helped her, that made it possible for her to grow. So we'll talk about that in the next episode. But for you, just simply staying in your strengths and planning your business around those strengths is going to help you be more successful and have more fun. The second way that you want to make your business yours is to plan it around your time and your money. You want to think on the front end, how many hours am I going to spend each week on my business? Many of the women that I've worked with, they have big goals for the time. They say, oh, I want to spend 30 hours a week on my business. And my next question is, okay, well, what are you going to give up to spend 30 hours a week on your business? Because as we know, our time is finite. You're always going to have to make choices. You have 24 hours in a day, and if you're currently busy like everyone I know, then adding 30 hours to your schedule means you're going to have to find those hours somewhere. What are you going to give up? Are you going to wake up earlier or go to bed later and maybe give up sleep? I don't recommend that because you'll eventually burn out and get very tired. Or maybe hire some childcare or a house cleaner to have some extra help with the kids or around the house to take more of that off your plate. However you go about it is up to you. But the truth is, if you want to add hours to your schedule, you're already very full schedule. You're going to have to find those hours somewhere. Thinking through how you build your business around your time and even your schedule is going to help you make sure that you're reaching your goals because those hours will only happen if you plan for them on purpose. But you also want to think through another important resource. You want to think through your money. If we're not careful, as we know, the business can just $20 you to death. One purchase after another, tiny purchase here, Walmart purchase there, Amazon purchase somewhere else, and before we know it, the business is draining our personal bank account. That's not good for our bank account or our relationships. That will lead to some fights down the line, and your business becomes a wedge between your marriage and your family. Instead, you just want to build your business around your personal budget. What is your goal for how much you're going to spend on the business until it funds itself? Now remember, we all have the goal to run businesses, not hobbies. And the difference between a business and a hobby is that a business makes you money and a hobby costs you money. So when I say you're going to plan for the money that you're going to spend on your business out of your personal funds, I mean this is a one-time thing. You're just trying to help get this little thing off the ground until it funds itself. So maybe you have a goal of spending $500 and that's it. That really motivates you to make sure this business is turning a profit before you max out your $500. Or maybe you don't want to put any money into the business at all. And that's a value decision. That's totally fine. It's your right to decide how much you want to spend on the business. And if that number is zero, all that means is you've got to turn a profit quicker. You've got to figure out how to take advance payment or advanced orders in order to do that. If you have a large savings account and you want to put a lot of money into the business, you want to put $5,000 or $10,000 into it to get it off the ground, if you're debt-free and you have the savings and the cash, that's your decision. Again, it's your business. It's just important to decide what your goal amount is on the front end so that the business doesn't drain your bank account. Okay, so let's pause for a second and recap what we've learned. The first tier of your business plan lays the foundation of your business. That's where you define your why and set goals. The second tier of your business plan makes it yours by building it around your strengths, your money, and your time. Now, one of the things that we need to realize, and this is true with any resource you have in your life, but your time and your money is not just yours. It's not just your time, it's your family's time. And your money is not just your money, it's your family's money. That's why it's so important as you set these goals of how many hours per week you're going to work on the business or how much money you're going to spend from your personal family funds to work on the business, that you get on the same page with your family. You want to have a conversation with them to get buy-in because then the business becomes something that brings you together, not pushes you apart. You don't want the business to be something that as you lean into that, it pushes your family away. This should be something that becomes a goal that they can support you and champion you and cheer for you. But that only happens when they're on the same page. And so when you have a conversation with your family, you want to communicate your why. Talk about why this is important to you. Talk about what you hope it can do for you or your family. A great example of this is a dear friend of mine, Caine, who's here with us today. And I have learned so much from Christine over the course of our friendship, but just watching how she has built this unbelievable nonprofit organization that is solving human trafficking across the globe. and seeing how she took this little dream and this little idea and has grown it into something that's changing the planet. And Christine's here with us today, and I'm very excited because we're going to learn from her. So Christine, thanks so much for hanging out with me today.
Love being here. Thanks, Christy.
Christine, I know that now where the A21 campaign is a completely different place than where this idea started. So take me back to the beginning, because many of our listeners, they have ideas, they have dreams and goals, and they're thinking, not me. This won't work for me. I'm not business-minded. I can't do this. And I know for you, you had similar thoughts. So tell us back to the beginning of where you even got the idea to start the A21 campaign.
Sure. I have to laugh, Christy. You said, not me. I'm pretty sure that's been my two words for everything that I've started.
Every stage.
Is I have never been qualified to do what I feel called to do, or, kind of what has really interested me in that sense. And so I was standing at a carousel waiting for my bags in Thessaloniki, Greece. I was not looking to start an anti-trafficking organization, but in that airport in Greece, seeing all of those posters of those young women and children, my heart was so gripped. And, I often use the phrase that I went from kind of looking at nameless and faceless sort of people to seeing real life human beings. It just changed everything. In particular, one of the children's names was Sophia, which is my second daughter's name. And I think, I just had a baby. I was highly hormonal, the same name as my own baby. Bang, it just gripped my heart to the point that I thought somebody should do something about this. Still, it was quite a while before the penny dropped, as we would say in Australia, where I thought, I am that somebody, that should be doing something about it, because all I could think about at that point in the airport and for several weeks after that was, I don't know what to do. I know nothing about trafficking. I don't know how to raise money for this kind of thing. I don't know anything about global injustice on a scale where I just didn't think I'm qualified enough. That wasn't my major at university. I'm not connected enough. I'm not resourced enough. I'm not articulate enough. I had all the reasons why not. That was really what was going through my head more than anything else, and thinking somebody has to do something about this.
And then you realized it was you. So when you finally embraced it, was it several weeks later that you were like, okay, I'm the person?
Yeah, I think in my heart of hearts, I knew it, but I just didn't want to admit it to myself. And then I did a world tour to have a look at different agencies that existed, still thinking at that point, probably subconsciously, I can help raise money for these organizations.
Right.
But I had certain criteria. There were a few things that were non-negotiable values for me. And as I traveled, I found that other agencies had different focuses, different core values, cultural values, and that was fine. It was just not in alignment with mine. And then I think it was one day I was talking to a friend, and she goes, maybe you have all this criteria and you didn't find anything that you could raise money for because you are meant to start something that will be in alignment with these values that you have. And it was like, whoa, that's a huge job.
Right.
I had no idea. If you ask me,
This is
here
not
I
a
am
small
now.
dream.
I'm like, I would never have dreamt this. I would never have dreamt
Right.
it. I thought if we see one girl rescued between now and the day I die, then that's why I'm starting it. That's really what it was.
Sure, for the one, but it's incredible to see what God has done with it,
Oh, yeah,
right? And like
absolutely.
something you couldn't have even seen in the beginning. So you have this pulling at your heart when you're in the airport, and then after weeks later, you kind of realize, okay, I'm going to be the person to do this, and you still can't see the scale. But what did you do next? How did you go from idea to actual action, where you're starting to do homework, do research, take steps to make this a real thing and make it official?
Yeah, I think, again, it's a process. At that time, there wasn't a whole lot of literature about this. There's a plethora nowadays, but there wasn't at the time. But any book I could get my hands on, anything from the UN, anything from UNICEF, anything that was just written out there. Then I started to read any book I could on justice, just to get an overall understanding, because it was a whole new language. It was just not the realm that I had been schooled in. I didn't understand the language, the semantics, or the complexities of the issues. So I started to educate myself, but I didn't go on hold. I was doing that while simultaneously I already had a platform that I had built. I was speaking into the church world, speaking at women's conferences. So even the little bit that I did know, I'm going to teach them. And pretty much that's what I did. I just made a decision that every platform I was on, even if it was a 2-minute segment in my talk, I would always tell them what happened to me in the airport, any new information that I'd gained, and how we together could actually make a small difference. And I used to always say, it's probably only a drop in the ocean, but a drop is worth it for that person, and every drop matters. And so what I found was I would begin to talk, and then people would just send donations. People would write to me and say, I want to get involved. Then I remember there was one women's conference I spoke at, and the women's ministry director was so moved that they received a spontaneous offering and gave me $53,000. almost wanted to give it back and go, we're not doing anything yet. I don't know what to do with this.
Right.
You know? And then I just kind of went, I guess God really wants us to do something with this, and then became, okay, now we actually even have money to put into this project. I've got a mouth. I knew that was the beginning, that I felt the Lord say to me, well, Christine, I've given you a mouth, haven't I? So just start with your mouth. And that's all I had. I had very little knowledge and a big mouth. And so I used my big mouth and my little bit of knowledge, and then one thing led to the other. But that's basically how it started. It was use what I've got in my hand, and eventually God kept putting more in my hand.
I love that when you're faithful with the small things, he can give you the bigger things. But it starts with those humble beginnings of getting a donation you didn't even expect to know what to do with at the time, but that God would use and fulfill. And I know in your story is so cool because the dream that God gave you is so big, and it's just such a big undertaking to literally change the world. And for many of these women, what their dream is feels so big. You know, it feels like this overwhelming, impossible thing. And for you, I know that your passion for this and your calling, like God prompting you in the airport that day and everything that evolved since then, is what pushed you through all of the challenges, through all of the setbacks, through all of the people telling you this will never work, this will never happen. So talk to our listeners just for a minute about how to stay connected with that calling and that drive in order to push through all the challenges that you're inevitably going to face. Whether
There's no doubt about it, Christy. I think that no matter what you do in life, there's been several occasions where I really didn't think I was going to make it. If some things didn't come together, it wouldn't happen. I felt way in over my head more often than not. So the people who you put around you are very, very crucial. I think, you know, my husband's had to talk me off the ledge like many, many times where I'm like, you know, what am I doing this for? Because anything that really is going to work, you have to be up for the fact that there's going to be disappointment along the way, a lot of disappointment. People are going to let you down. People are going to promise the world and give you an atlas. You know, there's going to be a lot of discouragement along the way. Not everyone is as passionate about your thing as you are at all. You know, oftentimes we start a business too because we just know the good or the service that we're providing is going to help so many people, and we just think everybody should see it like we do. And then you go, wow, okay, this is not keeping anyone else up at night like it is me. And I discovered that. And when you're dealing with rescuing the victims of human trafficking, I mean, count the thousands of ways something can go wrong because you're in a very volatile environment. You're working with law enforcement. You've got to work within the legislative constraints of nations. You're subject to different funding bodies. You have mafia that is involved in all of this. So there's organised crime, and you're dealing with death threats to your family, to your children. There's a huge emotional component to all of this. So you have to have this core conviction that I'm going to go all the way. And I don't know whether it's because necessarily I'm a female or just a caring person, but no one wants to have to confront disappointment. You can say up front, I know I'm going to have to overcome disappointment and discouragement and disillusionment, but when that thing kicks you in the gut,
it hurts.
It certainly hurts. And there is, even you can mentally talk your way out going, you knew something like this was going to happen. You knew all the chips are going to fall in the right place at the right time. You knew that there's going to be a lot of hills you're going to climb. You know that you're going to trip over, that you're going to make mistakes. You are going to fail along the way. And I think the greatest thing, I'm almost 50, and I've been doing different startups of one form or another for 28 years. And most of them have gone global that I've done. And I can say without exception, the greatest quality, apart from that deep sense of call and mission, I think sometimes even more than that, a tenacious spirit, a resilience is what you need, because you will be knocked down.
Right.
And so I find that tenacity and that resilience, that ability to say, get back up. Yes, you are disappointed. The difference is I can talk now more and go, you know, Christine, that you will feel all of this. 5 days from now, it's going to be better. Right. And I wish I could bypass the 5 days. God and I'm going like, really, God? Like, honestly, we all know. And why do I still need to feel
Can we fast forward, please?
Yeah. But I feel the way you could do that, if you're just freshly starting up, whether you're just starting a business, just starting a brand new initiative, get used to getting yourself back up as well. And don't wait for everyone else to get you back up. The degree to which you are able to pick yourself up and keep going is the degree to which you will keep going ultimately.
That's good. My mom is so persevering, and she's persistent to a fault, and I am as well. And I tell people the same thing. I'm like, anything I've achieved in my life has been because I'm ferociously persistent. I just won't give up, because those are the people that stand the test of time. It makes me think of something you tweeted or posted on Instagram a while back, and you may not even remember this, but it's a quote I actually use when I'm speaking, and that is, vision will inspire you, but discipline will get you there. And I love that, because I think a lot of the women in the business boutique are dreamers. dreamers and they've got this great idea. And even if they have a business, they're still dreaming about their business. But the discipline is hard. It's hard to walk it out. So tell me about, in your own experience through the A21 campaign or Propel Women or anything else you've worked on, what disciplines or practices have you put into place that have helped you stay the course, not only when things get hard, but when you just don't want to sometimes, when you just get tired?
Totally. I think my discipline has saved me and I think kept me on track. I mean, in every realm, we need to have them. There's physical disciplines. And I think in all the major faith practices, people have spiritual disciplines, whatever that might look like. And you have them because if you went with your feelings, how many times do we wake up? I don't feel like it. This morning I had a really good workout. I do not wake up and go, gee, I feel like a workout. In fact, I find that is less and less frequent the older I get, but it's never optional. That's the whole point, is like especially I'm in the middle of a major 3 months where, I've been on the road, every continent, nonstop. Our family, I've only been in my own bed 10 nights since January, which is, but we've all been together. It's just like we knew the first half of this year was going to be on the road. Well, when you're doing mega time zone changes and you are in front of people, 6 days a week and thousands of people all the time, then people go to me, well, Christine, how do you feel about getting on another plane? And I say, well, I stopped asking myself how I feel a long time ago because I'm not giving myself the option of feeling, because if I went with my feelings right at this moment, I wouldn't care if I don't get on another plane, for quite a while. Right. So it's not a matter of how I feel. And in a generation that is so driven by feelings, many entrepreneurs in whatever realm, because they're just such great dreamers and they're so passionate about what they're doing. I mean, I come back 3 years later and they haven't got off the starting block because they're just feeling it and waiting for all the planets to align and everything to come together. And I'm like, really? Okay, I'm sorry, but you're just going to have to put a stake in the ground and begin to work. And so for me, I have very disciplined reading practices. I'm always reading. If you see me on an elliptical, I've got earphones on, I'm listening to an Audible book or I'm listening to a podcast without fail, every day, like at least a couple of hours of every single day of my life is some form of input, whether it's through a podcast, a book, a video, whatever, at least a couple of hours. So I am a lifelong learner. So what helps me is that stuff. My spiritual health, obviously. I find that people don't burn out necessarily because of doing too much. I think you burn out because you don't do enough of the right things. So for me, I always say, even to my team, it's not what we do that's going to burn us out, it's what we don't do. So if you neglect your spiritual disciplines, if you neglect your own personal self-development, if you neglect your physical body, then everything else is going to fall apart and you're going to go, I feel burnt out, I can't do this, I can't manage this. But I find in my life that I live by the parable of talents, that, in that parable in Matthew 25, when the guy that started with 5 talents, he finished with 11. And the scripture says, to him who has more will be given. But if you're not managing where you are right now, God is not going to give you more to mismanage. So I find as you learn to manage at every step and every realm well, then God says, well, to him who has or her who has, I can give her more. And you grow to where you need to go. All the frustration along the way, it doesn't feel good. I think back in the day, maybe when I was a bit less sensitive, I'd go, don't worry about the frustration, pick yourself up and keep going. Now I'm going, look, sometimes you just got to pick yourself up crying, okay, but still pick yourself up. And you've got to feel the pain. When I snapped my ACL skiing, and the doctor did a hamstring graft, he said this to me, Christy, and I think this would help every entrepreneur and every person that's starting anything, whether it's a not-for-profit, a ministry, a business. He said to me after the surgery, Christine, most people do not totally recover from the injury that you've got. Not that they can't, because your right knee is now stronger than your left knee. But the truth is that it is so painful to pick yourself back up and start walking again after the kind of injury you have. Most people will walk with a slight limp solely because they're not willing to embrace the pain of recovery. So whether you choose to be healed totally or partially, quickly or slowly, the degree to which you're willing to embrace the pain of recovery is the degree to which you will start to move forward. And I think whether it comes to building a business or a ministry or life, you have to understand that you have to build up your pain tolerance. Your pain tolerance to disappointment, disillusionment, betrayal, discouragement, failure, other things getting into your heart, bitterness, unforgiveness. I find it's got a whole lot more to do with your internal state than really what happens externally. And I think sometimes you go, man, I didn't hit my sales goals. But how you let that affect you internally, what your tape recorder begins to play on the inside, not hitting my sales goals or failing to hit those sales goals today doesn't make me a failure.
I love that example too, because I know a lot of the people that I work with, they're in the streaming phase, or even if they've had a business for a while, that's the exact excuse I hear of, like, it's not ready yet, or I don't have everything in place yet. And our feelings, as you said, are deceiving. Totally. Whether that's feelings that you're not ready, you're not equipped, you're not qualified, or feelings of fear, or someone's already doing it. I love Patsy Claremont's quote. She said one time in devotional, she goes, well, feelings don't have a brain.
Hello.
Right? So you're going like, well, as a feelings person, and I'm very much a feelings person, that really does put you in check of going, okay, let me look at this. I may feel this way about it. I may not feel like pulling myself back up. I may not feel like putting myself back out there when I faced rejection or that failure or that setback, but you do it anyway, and you embrace the pain like you're saying, and those are the people that are able to actually move forward because you're willing to recover, to heal, in your example, but also just in business. Like, there was a speaking event I had several years ago where, Christine, I totally bombed. Like, it was one of my first ones. It was within the first year of speaking. And I stuttered and panicked and cried the entire drive back home to Nashville from Indiana. And it scarred me. And it made me think, I never want to speak again. I never want to put myself out there again. My feelings were, you shouldn't do this. You're a failure. You're a bad speaker. This is not for you. But those feelings are inaccurate. And so for me to be able to pull myself back up and look at what I would have missed out on if I had listened to that. But so many women are in the same spot where they don't feel like it. They don't feel qualified. They don't feel like they can actually do this thing. And if you can get past your feelings and just start doing, like you're saying, just do it. Just start doing stuff. Then you don't have to worry about your feelings, because in actuality, your actions are going to speak louder than words anyway, and than your feelings.
And you act your way into a feeling anyway over time. You can change literally how you feel about something by going there. And, my mentor always says to me, Christine, you just have to do it afraid. You have to do it, because people might look at a personality type like mine, and I have to laugh, because as if somehow being a high D makes you not care or not have feelings or not be afraid, so people think. I just choose to be more full of faith than I am full of fear. So instead of being fearless, I'm not ever fearless. I'm just more faithful than fearful. And so you choose, what am I going to be more full of? And sometimes you might be just 1 degree more full of faith than you are of fear, but that's all you need. It's been with great fear and trembling in certain things. I've stepped out. There are times where things didn't go the way I had hoped. And, you've just got to go, okay, we just keep going. What do? You don't stop. And sometimes it's really good for you too. I always say, people admire your strengths, but they connect with your weaknesses. So if you can help people know that, there are struggles, there are times that we're all fearful, whether it's me, whether it's you, the person listening to this podcast, you have to step off the ledge. I grew up in a Greek culture is very pessimistic. It's culture where, it doesn't matter how bad things are, they'll always get worse. And so I was always brought up, Christine, don't take risks, don't step out of the boat. You can't have your cake and eat it too. Everything that goes up must come down. It's don't count your chickens before they hatch. So in me, I had to deprogram myself, because I think I subtly thought everything's going to fail before I start. So why should I start anyway? And so I might have had a dream or a passion, but this negative self-talk, when it came to you've got to jump, I would find 1,000 reasons why now is not the time to jump. And you know what? I would still be sitting here today. There would be no A21, there'd be no Propel, there'd be no books, there'd be no speaking, there'd be nothing, because I don't know that anyone ever feels prepared enough.
Right. There's no such thing as ready. I tell people that all the time. Like, if you're waiting until ready is a myth.
What is that? I jump and then make it up as I go.
Yeah.
That's yes. Or Nick pushes me and I'm like, okay, let's, and we've got good systems and practices and checks and balances. But at the end of the day, no matter what it is, it's like, okay, well, we're going to jump. This is going to stretch everyone, stretch all of our resources. I am going to have to increase my knowledge. I'm going to have to grow at a whole nother level. And I hope I don't splatter at the bottom. Basically, I don't know what else to say to you. That's it.
And if you don't, if you're not growing, if you're not stretching, if you're not outside your comfort zone, then you're probably not stretching enough. You're probably not growing enough. And so it's a good sign that you're doing something. I love how Joyce Meyer says, new levels, new devils. Anytime you do something new, it brings in this fear at that different level. And it's just what you said. I love reminding the women I work with, I'm like, don't wait until you're not scared to do the thing you want to do. You just do it scared. Gretchen Rubin, in her book, The Happiness Project, she says one of her tips that I love, she said, act the way you want to feel, and your feelings will follow. And so if you act confident, as silly as it sounds, it could reprogram your brain.
Oh, totally.
And you begin to feel confidence and you begin to go for it with a new level of enthusiasm than you had before just because you started pretending.
And I think that's it. You've got to know who you are in Christ. And that gives you a confidence. I think sometimes we're scared, like, I don't want to be arrogant, and we shouldn't be arrogant, but we should be confident. And if there's a dream in our heart and we believe that God's put it in there, then we need to pursue that. I wrote a book called Unashamed because I wonder how much more I would have done in my life and could have done if I had dropped the baggage of shame a lot earlier. But I had so many messages, just from my own background, being left unnamed and unwanted in a hospital, being abused, and then just culturally being shamed, my gender. There was so much that I carried in that I really can't do this. Who am I? This sense of unworthiness. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of women, and probably a lot of women listening to this today, feel that sense of unworthiness.
Absolutely.
Like, I kind of have a dream, but who am I to dream this? I didn't go to the right school. I don't know the right people. I'm not smart enough. I'm not pretty enough. I'm not thin enough. I'm not rich enough. Everything in life is geared to heap shame on you, to tell you you are not enough. You really shouldn't be doing this. But the thing that I've discovered, and I mean, honestly, hear it from a big sister if you're listening to this, 28 years on in this journey, I'm half a century old. I don't know anyone that ever thought they could. I don't know anyone that ever thought they were enough. The difference is some of us just made a decision to go, well, I'm not enough, but God is more than enough. So you know what? In my weakness, he can be made strong. And it might make you happy to know that I never think, naturally speaking, I can do what I'm about to start doing whenever it's a new initiative or whatever. But I won't allow that feeling of unworthiness to hold me back anymore. That's the difference. I can read the signs a lot earlier. And, I'll stop that self-talk and go, Christine, you're saying no for all the wrong reasons. You're saying no because you think someone else is better, or you just shouldn't be doing, you're not smart enough, you're not good enough, you don't have a skill set in this area. What are people going to think? And I think when I am able to drop that baggage of that unworthiness and just go, you know what though, I don't have to be the best or the biggest or the fastest or the smartest. I just have to be me and take that next step with who me is. And once you take that pressure off yourself, that you have to be biggest, fastest, smartest, quickest, then I think you can just take your next step. And that's actually all you can ever do. It's a hard fight to fight in your brain because in the business world, it's a lot of competition and a lot of comparison. And we can be inspired by all of that, but when you start to feel like a failure because you're not growing as quickly as your competitor maybe, or as quickly as a colleague, then you can lose heart and quit way ahead of time. And what I've found is I've never been the one that's come out the fastest. How's this for encouragement? When I was in Bible school 28 years ago, after I gave my first talk in chapel, the dean of the Bible school stood up and said in front of the entire chapel, my name was Christine Karyophilus at the time, my maiden name, and he said, after that poor effort, Christine Karyophilus, you would never preach publicly. Nobody would ever invite you to come and speak for them.
Wow.
And I thought, so, how to win friends and influence people. Yeah. He obviously didn't read the book, but could you just imagine being a first-year college student and you're in front of your whole year,
sure,
and you're already with fear and trepidation beginning to pursue something that you feel is a God dream. And then that was shattered. I almost didn't recover from that. I walked out of the college never to return. Thank God there was one person that came back and got me. Nowadays, I can laugh out loud and go, oh, I know. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's all right, enemy. I'm very aware. Out loud, I go, it's fine. I know I'm not smart enough. Right. But that's 28 years on. And some of those hits really nearly took me out. And that's what I kept meaning about the tenacity and the resilience. And you've got to get up and have good people around you and do your spiritual discipline and stay fit. And listen, to this day, I will listen to a motivational type of podcast 20 minutes every day, no matter what, just because I need it. I need to kind of believe the truth, Christine. Feel yourself and change your whole body state. Otherwise, you're going to believe the lie, because we live in a challenging world. And when you enter the business world, the entrepreneurial world, it can seem like dog eat dog. So you have got to remind yourself why you're doing all of this.
I love that example too. And I think it's so important to hear from you with someone with your impact and your ministry and the difference that you're making. It'd be very easy to look at you, Christine, and think, oh, well, she is fearless. She just can take on things that the average person couldn't take on. But I love your example of you're not fearless, you're faithful. And leading up to the first Business Boutique event last year, it was amazing because for me, I had this complete breakdown. All of the thoughts you're talking about, I can't do this. Who are you? Who are you? All of those thoughts. And it was one of those ugly crying face, hysterical sobbing breakdowns. And I felt God stop me and say, Christy, you are freaking out because you think this is your event, and it is not your event. It is my event. And it just is this reminder, like you were saying, it's not about your abilities. It's about what God wants to do. And one of my favorite verses is in 1 Thessalonians, and it says, the one who calls you is faithful, and he will do it. Amen. Not you will do it. He will do it. He will pull it off. And I just think that's such a good message for us to end on, because people look at your story and they probably think that you didn't experience any fear, but you have. You're just, as you said, resilient, and you picked yourself back up anyway, and you're faithful, trusting the one who is going to pull it off for you. So Christine, thank you so much for hanging out and spending some time. I know our listeners have gotten a ton from it, and it's just such a good reminder and practical tips, but also the inspiration you provide. It gives us such hope. So thank you for hanging out. Now, if you enjoyed what you just heard and want to hear more from Christine Caine, I'm excited to tell you guys that she's going to be speaking at my Business Boutique event in Nashville this fall. She brought the house down at the events this past spring, and you don't want to miss what she has to tell you about following your dreams. And as a bonus, I have a special offer for you a little later in the show, so keep listening in for that. All right, guys, now I want to switch gears. I know it may be easy to look at an example like Christine Caine and the unbelievable work that she's doing and think, you know what, that could never be me. But the truth is, there are women at all different levels of business and nonprofit organizations that are winning, that are doing this thing. And so now I've got an awesome story for you. And this is a woman that is setting an incredible example for all of us.
My name is Amber Jones. I am the owner of Minnie's Travel Boutique. We are a Disney-only travel agency.
Meet Amber Jones. She is a married mother of 4 and owner of Minnie's Travel Boutique.
I used to live in Florida. I lived there for 10 years, and I had annual passes to Disney and went there all the time. Because of that, all my friends wanted me to plan their vacations, and eventually my husband said, hey, you should do that for a job.
In early 2015, Amber started working for a friend's travel agency.
I joined with an agency. It was a family friend. She was already working, so I became an agent under her. And I did that for about a year, but I wasn't making very much money.
Although Amber enjoyed her work, she didn't feel a connection to it.
I was wearing Disney t-shirts, and it was all bright and very colorful. I looked like Disney had thrown up on me all day, and it just wasn't me. So I didn't feel like it was very authentic.
In November 2015, Amber attended the Business Boutique in Nashville, Tennessee.
Around the time that Business Boutique rolled around last year, I was kind of already contemplating, should I continue with this? Should I go out on my own? So I went to Business Boutique, and after hearing what Christy was saying about really focusing on one aspect of your business, that was a big deal for me, because we were trying to do cruises for other companies. We were doing Carnival and Royal Caribbean and Disney, and it was just too much information. My biggest takeaway was that I needed to be more professional. Like I talked about before, I was always dressing in t-shirts and just making it all Disney. And I really spent a lot of time watching the women as they were talking on stage and how they carried themselves. And I started to think I need to put a little bit more into myself to come off with a professional look. So I don't dress in Disney t-shirts anymore. I dress nicely when I go out to meet people. And this puts me as a business owner. This makes me look professional. That was a huge takeaway for me. And also setting apart the time. Christy already talked a lot about, you need to have a time during the day. This is when I work. This is what I'm doing. And so setting apart that time has made a huge difference.
While at the Business Boutique, Amber learned a lot and made a big decision.
After Business Boutique, actually, I think probably the second night before I even left Nashville, I called my business owner and I said, I'm just going to go out on my own. I broke out, and this was in November, so I set my opening date as January 1st. I gave myself about that month and a half before I really launched my business, because I wanted to make sure that I was at a good starting point and that I had some things figured out. I met with the Dave Ramsey endorsed CPA, followed all the steps for getting my licensing, for getting my business bank account, all the things that they had talked about at Business Boutique. I did that right away. That allowed me to have a good, jumping off point for launching the business. So that's what I did. And I had learned at the Business Boutique how to do Canva and all those things. So I was able to create a logo, and I started out my Facebook page. And then when I launched my business, I did a really big giveaway. I gave away a Pandora charm. So I did that on Instagram and Facebook and got a lot of likes. I always say that before I went to Business Boutique, I was a mom with a business, and now I feel like a business owner.
Since starting her own agency, Amber's business has exploded.
Last year, all year, I booked 3 trips, and I made about $900. And so far this year, I've booked roughly 20 trips, and I made $1,000 this month. So I've made this month what I made all year last year.
After starting her own business, Amber was able to apply what she learned at the Business Boutique.
The biggest obstacle for me is just finding clients. When I went to Business Boutique, I learned how to use Canva, I learned how to blog, I learned how to use MailChimp, I learned how to do Facebook for small businesses. So all of that together gave me a great start for finding clients.
The biggest thing Amber learned at the Business Boutique was the why behind her business.
The why behind my business was something I really struggled with at Business Boutique because I met all of these wonderful people who were doing nonprofits, and their businesses had these really big, honorable things that they were trying to achieve. And I'm thinking, okay, I book for Disney. Like, this is not life-changing. And so I really prayed a lot about that just in Business Boutique, sitting in the sessions about why am I doing this, other than the fact that it's fun. And I felt like God really put on my heart. My husband has a lot of physical problems. He has a lot of back issues, a lot of arthritis. And we've talked before about what would happen if he wouldn't be able to work. So really my why became trying to build a business that could replace his income if we get to that point. It was confirmed right after Business Boutique. We were getting ready to go home and his back totally went out and we couldn't even make the drive home to Indiana. So we had to stay an extra night here in Nashville just for him to be able to ride in the car to get home. And I really felt like that was God telling me yes, this is why you're doing this. But since then, I've booked trips for people who have a loved one who's dying, and they're making their final trip as a family, for kids who are sick. So I think it's kind of expanded. Yes, it is Disney, but these are people making their family memories together, and it is an important thing. So it's kind of expanded, but that's how it started. I feel like because I have been seeking out what God wants for my business, and I pray about my business all the time, and I pray about the events that we go to. I do think that God has given me greater purpose in it. And that helps because, I have 4 kids, I homeschool one of them, and there are times when I have to say, no, mommy's working. And, last week I was gone all week from 9 a.m. till 8 p.m. So that's a big chunk of time away from my family. But I think knowing the why and having a why that has purpose makes it okay those times that I do have to take away from family time. It makes a huge difference to know your why. Knowing your why and having a goal are the 2 most important things in starting your business, I really do think, if you want to be successful. Because if not, when it gets hard, you're just going to give up.
Amber has set goals for her business from the beginning. Goals that are connected to her why.
In 5 years, I would like to have met the goal where I could replace my husband's income. And I'm just doing it incrementally. This year, I would like to make enough that we can buy a new car, and then just kind of up it. Because if I was just going at it and not knowing what I wanted, first of all, I'd probably be spending any profit that I have because I wouldn't have a goal in mind. So having a very specific goal about what I want my business to achieve this year has really helped. And it does help those weeks that I work from 9 to 8, for an entire week and my kids are, come home. It's it's temporary and it's going to be a good thing in the long run. It's crazy. It really is. It's something that I never considered. I really didn't think that I could do this. I really didn't think that I could run my own business and have people working for me and, just meeting these goals that I've set. My husband always says he's going to end up working for me, so that would be great.
Amber's advice is to follow your instinct.
Because it's my business, I'm more confident in making the decisions. When I was working for someone else, and even though my boss wasn't like this, I think I always felt like I had to ask her permission for things, and now I just do it. Once I decided, hey, this business is going to reflect me in the way that it looks and what we do and how we treat our clients, I think that's really when I became a business owner, when I started making decisions.
And not allow fear to get in the way of your dreams.
Fear of just failing. When I signed up with my first agency, I had a feeling that maybe it wasn't the right way to go, that maybe I should go out on my own. And I kind of took that road because it was easier. And I can only imagine if I had just started my agency in 2015, where I would be now instead of 2016. If you have something in your heart, just follow it and try. I second guess myself a lot. And my husband is kind of my big cheerleader. You can do this. This is no problem. You've got this. So just following those instincts, I think, is just huge.
Amber also encourages you to connect to the Business Boutique community. The Business Boutique made such a huge impact in Amber's life that she's coming back to the event in Nashville this November, and she's bringing 2 of her travel agents with her. She's so excited to share her life-changing experience with others.
Go, absolutely go. It's the best thing I've ever done. I wish I could go to all of them. And I seriously tell every woman I know that owns a business about it, which is a lot of people at the vendor events that I go to. But it just made, it really did make all the difference. I really do attribute what's happened with my business to so much of what I learned at Business Boutique. Because you're around other people who have done it, number one, and then you're around other people who are in the same position as you that you can just bounce ideas off of. They're really helpful and very encouraging. Business Boutique, it made me a business owner. Like I said before, I was just a mom with a business, and now I am a business owner. And those are two very different things. So Business Boutique, I really feel like gave me the tools to be that business owner.
The overwhelming success of her new business is something Amber never expected. And that's not the end of the story. Since we spoke to Amber, she has hired 10 new agents and she's made over $150,000 in sales. And it's making an impact in her family's life.
It's almost something that I can't even comprehend because, I felt like when I became a stay-at-home mom, like that was what I was doing. I hadn't planned on starting a business. I was just going to homeschool my daughter, be a mom, be a wife. And to be able to do both of those things is just such a blessing. I've always wanted to be a stay-at-home mom. Like when I was in college, I'm like, yeah, I'm getting my teaching degree, but I really just want to stay at home. So it's something I've always wanted to do. I've always felt a little bit guilty on my own. It has nothing to do with my husband, but a little bit guilty about not bringing in some type of income because up until 4 years ago, I worked 2 jobs all the time. So I'm used to bringing in income. I'm used to, helping my family, and then just to be at home, which is awesome. I still always felt a little bit guilty, like I need to, be bringing in something. So to be able to have a job that allows me to be home and be there for my family when I need to be, but still work is just, it's really amazing. I don't know how else to say it other than I'm just completely in awe of everything that has happened.
Isn't that incredible? Y'all, I can tell you, as long as I've done this, it never gets old hearing success stories of people winning. And I'll tell you, I want to hear from you. If you have a story of something you have accomplished in your business or goals that you have reached, I would love it if you would email those to us. You can email me at podcast@businessboutique.com. That's podcast@businessboutique.com because we want to hear from you and celebrate and champion your success story as well. And here's the thing I want you to understand. That can be you. Amber's story can be your story and the story of your business. She took the concepts and skills she learned right here in Nashville at the Business Boutique and applied them to her business. And you can too. In fact, I have a special code just for you. If you use the code BBWright, you get $10 off any tier of pricing. That's B as in boy, Wright, WRIGHT, and you get $10 off any tier of pricing for your Business Boutique event tickets. Use that code, bring your friends, and I'll see you there. All right, so let's dive into your homework. Now, I told you guys, after every episode, we're going to have some homework where you can apply what you've learned. Because we can have all the information in the world, but if we don't take action on it, nothing's going to change. So we have an awesome download for you, and that's going to be your Business Boutique Quick Start Guide. This is a beginner version of your business plan, and it gives you the elements you need to start thinking about how to plan with the end in mind. Now, we covered 2 tiers of your business plan today, but in the next episode, we're going to cover the next 2 tiers of your business plan. The download you'll receive today has all 4 tiers in it, but I encourage you to only fill out the first 2 tiers until we're able to talk about the next 2 in the next episode. You can download your free Business Boutique Quick Start Guide by going to businessboutique.com/podcast. Click on the show notes for this episode, and at the bottom, you'll find a spot for you to enter your email. Then you'll be able to access the Business Boutique Quick Start Guide. Now remember, this is where you take action on everything we've talked about today. You can have all the information in the world, but if you don't do anything about it, nothing's going to change. So download your Quick Start Guide and start to fill it out. This is where you make your goals and your dreams a reality. Now that's it for this week, but I want to hear from you and I want you to join our community. Below the show notes to this episode is a comment space for you to talk about what you're learning and experiencing in your business. Go there and share what you're working on. How's your business plan going? What's your why and what goals are you setting? I'll be there to cheer you on in this process along with all of your fellow podcast listeners. Thanks for hanging out with me today, and don't forget to subscribe to the podcast. For more encouragement on how to make money doing what you love, visit businessboutique.com.
Mercy Me is coming to Pittsburgh, the Together Again tour with Mercy Me, Crowder, and special guest Andrew Rip, Thursday, October 5th. Bring your family and friends to the PPG Paints Arena in Pittsburgh for Mercy Me, Crowder, and Andrew Rip live in concert. 3 multiple award-winning artists on one stage for one night. Let your spirit soar, your heart sing, and your faith ignite. Mark your calendars for Thursday, October 5th. Get your tickets now at mercyme.org.